great marketing tool. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to record this so we have it as part of our class as well. On the board here basically is what we need to do for our marketing plan, okay? So keep that in mind. This is going to be some of the key things that we have to cover. And there's 9 sections, if you want to break it down by sections, that you have to have for your marketing plan. And we'll cover the 9 sections now and go through that in a little more detail, okay? Now remember, I'm not worried about page counts, so don't worry if it's not 30 pages. Basically, you should be at between, if it's a really good thought out plan, it should be between 12 and 15 pages, more or less, okay? And I'll point out the places where you should have a lot of pages in your plan, which makes sense, okay? So let's talk about this here for a second. So the first part of the plan, again, is the executive summary. Now we'll come back to that because that's the last part that you need to complete after you have all the other components done. All right? Now because this is an international plan, I really want us to think about it. This is not how you have to start. Maybe you can start here if you like, with this section over here, which is really 4 in the plan. And by the way, there's no exact order, there's no right or wrong order to lay this out in the plan. This is just a logical order. Sometimes I see plans where it's a little different. That's okay, there's no right or wrong in how you set it up. I prefer to see it this format, and I would suggest using this format. But I've seen plans that are in different structures and different formats too. But these are the most important things that do have to be included in any type of marketing plan. So let's assume for a second that you want to enter into an international market, whether you're bringing a product into the US or you're taking a product and you're bringing it into Brazil, Colombia, whatever it is. Obviously, we're going to come to this section here in a second, the product or the service, the what, the why, and the who. You already know some of that, and we're going to talk about that a little more. I think the most important thing you need to start with when entering into an international market is this macro environment piece, as I mentioned to you. And that's because this section is where you're going to do a lot of the research. I would spend a few hours looking at this because the first thing you want to know are the laws of the land, right? That's the legal piece. So understand what the laws are of the land. And in your strategy, in your plan, you may want to say, there are no laws that prohibit the sale of Professor Ken's water in the United States. The only laws that may affect us are the packaging laws, the labeling laws, that you have to have nutritional information and specific packaging, and you can't make claims that this water is the best water, false claims and false advertising. That's basically a general law in most countries. So that's what you want to mention there in terms of the law. The next piece is political. If you're bringing a product into the U.S., politics really don't play a big role into bringing the product in. But if you're going into Brazil or Argentina or Mexico or Europe, with the EU changing, you have to understand the politics of things too. How does that play a role? So here you would state, the political climate in the US is stable. However, because it's a Democrat-led Congress, they favor X versus a Republican-led Congress that favors Y. If Republicans take control of the US House or Senate rather, or the House rather, then the laws may change, and if it does, this is how it could affect us. Something like that is a good statement, and you need to say, if this happens, then it will result in this. It's sort of like an if-then type statement, right? And then the last piece would be the economic piece, and these are the 3 most important parts, I think, that you have to think about first when entering an international market. The next piece is economic considerations. How is the economy affecting that market? Is the economy good? Is it bad? If the economy is good, how long will it stay good? How long will that affect your business? So you have to come up with an idea there. And then, of course, you have the social, cultural piece. How does the society in that marketplace change things? So you need to make a mention to that in your plan. So let's say you're targeting the US. Right now, we have a very diverse culture, right? Different ethnicities, different languages. We're mixed gender between male and female. There's more awareness now around equal opportunities and diversity and all that. So how does that affect your plan, if it does at all? It may not affect your plan at all, because all people drink water. So if everybody drinks water, there's really not a lot of social, cultural things that could change that. However, maybe the culture and the social changes. We like bottled water. We prefer bottled water over tap water, things like that, right? So you might want to note that. And then lastly, the technological changes. And again, that's not in hardware. That's not saying like if I get better computers, we're going to do business. It's sort of how the technology is changing things. Like, does artificial intelligence change your opportunity in business? Does the ease of ordering, like we talked about the flat screen ordering, does that change your availability in the marketplace? Okay, so that's what we go there. And then lastly, the internet. How does the internet affect your business? And you have to really understand that too, because the internet affects all your business. So with the international plan, you have the product or service, and we'll come back to that here in a second, but then start thinking through the legal stuff first. So I would start your research here at legal, political, and economic, because let's face it, if your product can't be shipped into the country, or it's difficult to ship into the country, then why even bother? I'll give you a great example. I had a client last week who hired my company to put together a marketing plan for them. And it was based upon bringing a product in from Jamaica and selling it. It was a food product. And he was all excited, and I was excited. It was a good opportunity. And we basically had an agreement written up, and I sent him the agreement. He signed the agreement. He even sent me a deposit to start the job, because I required a deposit to start the job. After 2 days go by, he calls me up and he says, "Ken, we have to stop the project." I go, "Okay, why? What happened?" He goes, "Because I did some research, and I spoke to the city, I spoke to the state, and the licensing that's required for me to do this is going to take months to get this ready, and it's going to take time, and I don't know if I can do it properly. I'm going to have to get some more advice." Now, I could help him with that too, but he didn't hire us to do that. So basically, he wanted to start the marketing plan first before he started doing the research on the environment, which is backwards. So you have to be careful about that. And the truth is, I have a lot of stories like that. I have a company from Brazil that wanted to bring in bathtubs. They made bathtubs in Brazil and toilet bowls in Brazil. Now, if anyone's ever traveled to a different country, you know the size of the bathtubs and the size of the sinks and the faucet are different than the size here in the US. There's standard sizes. So what did they do? Well, and this is expensive stuff. They're $400, $500, $1,000 a unit, right? So what did this company from Brazil do? Before they even did research here in the US, they shipped 2 containers full of their product into the US, into a warehouse. They got a warehouse, shipped it in there, it landed inside the US, and now they wanted to start selling it. Within a couple of weeks, what do you think they found out?
Oh, they are not the same measurements.
They're not the same measurements. You can't put a 72-inch bathtub in a 60-inch space. There's just not, unless you're going to custom make it, right? So they realized that the strategy now that they had this stuff in there is that they had to only deal with custom-made homes. They couldn't retrofit existing homes, so that limited their market immediately. I give you another story of another company. They sold these heaters, these incredible heaters, and really phenomenal. And they sell electric heaters, a lot of electric heaters and things like that in other countries. And they imported product. They did no research. They imported product. Anybody know the difference between voltage between our country and other countries?
In my country is 2.4, and here is 1.2.
Right. So what do you think they did without doing their research? They shipped all the product over in the existing voltage from their country. And when it got here, they couldn't sell anything because you can't sell it. So that's the type of stuff that you have to prevent. So in your marketing plan, you have to consider that in your plan. That makes sense, okay? So let's go back to the product and service for a second. So product or service here is interchangeable. The first thing is you need to know what. What is your product or service? What makes you different? Then you need to know why. Why do you exist? Why would the customers buy your product or service? Explain that in a couple of sentences. And then who? Who is your target market? Who do you expect to buy this product or service? That's part of this too. So in your product and service description, make sure you put the what makes you different. That's that unique selling proposition we talked about. The why do you exist versus someone else? And the who's going to buy your product, okay? Then that who sort of moves into this next section, which is your target market. So like we talked about just a few minutes ago, your target market is a big, giant circle right now. It's everybody, so I'm going to sell water. So my target market is everybody that drinks water in the U.S. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty big. I think everybody in the U.S. drinks water. So what's that? 330 million people, whatever it is. But then, inside that target is a smaller target because in reality, not everyone's going to buy my product. So in reality, it's not everybody who drinks water, it's everybody who drinks bottled water, which is a smaller target. Now my bottled water is $5 a piece. So in reality, the target's even smaller. It's everybody who drinks bottled water who's willing to spend $5 a piece. Okay, so you sort of drill it down. So this is 330 million, 100 million, maybe 5 million, and then after that, it's a geography. Where are they? Am I going to do the entire U.S. or just a specific geography of how many people are going to buy bottled water, pay $5 a piece that live in Florida? Then that's my number. So let's say my number is 3 million. Based upon the estimates that I have. 3 million, are we going to be able to sell all 3 million people? No. We have to get the estimate. So let's say we do 10%, and the 10% would be 300,000, right? So that is my estimate of what it looks like, 300,000 there, okay? So that's what I use, that's how I come to that number, and that's what I use to do the financial plan, basically. I use it that way. Make sense? So that would be your target. So who are they? What is the size of your market? Where are they? What's the geography? And how are you going to get to them? How are you going to get to them? That's sort of, in this case, that's sort of the place. And place would be distribution, right? Not the physical place, but distribution. How do you take a product to market? You can take a product to market direct to the consumer. That's one way. The second way is go direct to a retailer, and they sell it to the consumer. The third way is through a wholesaler, and they sell it to a consumer. And then a fourth way would be like a master wholesaler who brings it down to a wholesaler. So that's really the 4 different ways that you can get a product into a market, into an international market, okay? So the place. So that's sort of over here in this section. The next section we talked about already is your macro environment. That's where you're putting your external things. The macro are things that are happening outside of your company. And then the next section is what we call our micro environment. This is important because here we're doing a SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats, right? Your strengths and weaknesses are internal. Those are the things that are going to affect you as a company. Your opportunities and threats are more external. They might even tie into this macro environment a little bit. So what I like to do and what I suggest you do to really get a good understanding of what the market looks like is first you do your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats on yourself. So I would put 2 or 3 points in each section, if you could figure that out. 2 or 3 points in each section. 2 strengths, 2 weaknesses, 2 opportunities, and 2 threats about yourself, about your company, about your service. Then I would take at least a minimum of 2 competitors. Two competitors, you do the same thing. 1, 2, 3 strengths for each one. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Because now you have a good understanding of what the market field looks like, okay? So what happens here? If you do, and you don't have to grid it like this. I like to grid it because it allows me to point out certain things. So let's say you have a strength over here. Number 1 is your strength. Let's get a different marker that works. Let's say that's your strength over here. And competitor number 2, or competitor number 1, has a weakness, and those two go against each other. You know that you can beat competitor 1 with that strength versus their weakness. Or maybe competitor 2 has an opportunity over here. You know that you can also take advantage of that opportunity and go after that opportunity. That allows you to see what the market plan, what the market strategy lays out to be. And that's a perfect example of that. So in this section, you're really explaining the competition and the substitutes. So what's the competition and what's the substitutes here in that marketplace? And this is where you have to do some research. You have to really understand what's happening in the marketplace. So the two places that you have to spend time in researching the international plan would be your macro environment and your micro environment. Because those two components, those two parts of this plan will help you or help you fail or help you succeed depending upon what you find out, right? So then after you get through the product, service, the target market, the macro environment, and the micro environment, the next section is your price. How do you price the product? Well, we know you have to understand the marketplace in order to price your product, and then we talked about those 3 C's. Your COGS, you have to know your cost of goods sold to come up with your price. You have to know what the competition is selling your price for, and you have to know at the end of the day what the customer will pay for that product. Just because you say the product is worth $10 doesn't mean that the customer will pay $10 for that product, right? So you need to know these 3 things in order to develop your price. Then you have to take your cost, your total cost, and add a markup on it and put a price on it. Very similar to the exercise that we've already done. So if your total cost is $1 and you want to mark it up 3 times, then you should sell for $3. Then you have to ask yourself, okay, what is the competition selling the product for? Is it selling it for $3 or $5 or $4? Where am I against the competition? So how am I positioning my product against the competition? And remember, positioning is where you put the product in the consumer's mind. And then what will the customer pay? Will they pay that much money for that product too? So that's the price section. And then you have promotions. Nothing gets sold without the marketing, right? So you have to really put together your marketing strategy here. So in promotions, you need to know what your messaging is. So you have to create that message. And then how are you going to get the message out and to who will you target? So you have to create a message like Professor Ken's water is the best water you can drink to make you really smart in marketing. So every time you drink it, now I'm smarter in marketing. See, that's the messaging. You want some too? Yeah. I was just buying a new bottle. So that's basically what the messaging is, right? So now you have to create a budget. And in this piece here, we're working budgeting by years. In your promotional plan, you might want to put together your first year budget. How much would you spend? How much would you spend on marketing? Okay. So let's say you want to do social media. Let's say you want to do TV ads, and here you're going to spend $1,000. Here you're going to spend $5,000. How much would you spend on your marketing and promotion? I want to show you how you get to those numbers here in a second. And then lastly, the last part of the plan is your budget. This is where it all ties together, very similar to the exercise that we just did, your budgeting. So let's talk about this for a second. How do you come up with a budget? So what was our estimated target? How many people did we estimate that we could sell this product to? We came up with a number over here, 300,000, right? We did the the math, we came down to 300,000. Okay. We went through the legal, we went through the macro, everything looks good there. We have one or two things that we have to be careful about. We went through the micro environment. We understand there's a competitive competition, and in this case here, we know that a similar product, the competition, C1 sells it for $2, C2 sells it for 75 cents, right? 75 cents, okay? That's our competition. That's what the price looks like in the competition based upon what we did here and we understand. Now, our COGS, our cost of goods sold here would be 50 cents. Our COGS is 50 cents. So over here, we're going to put 50 cents for our COGS, right? So what do we want to sell it for? What's our price? What type of price we want to come out with?
Wasn't it $5?
Well, we could. If we do $5, then we're above our competition.
150.
150, right? Now, I like 150, but here's the problem about being 150. You'll be in the middle, which will be dangerous because then you have two competitors versus one competitor. So I would say you come above that, right? I'd rather put him in the middle, so maybe I do 250, okay? Well, let's say this. Let's make the math easy. Let's say this guy is $1, right? So now we know we could do 150, okay? This is where we do the math. So 150 is a good number. So we're selling it for 150, which is basically 3 times the 50 cents. Everybody see the math there?
Yes.
Okay. So let's use the number 300,000 as a number. That would be our total revenue. So at the end of the day, we're multiplying 300,000 by 150, which will be our total revenue. All right, which is what, 450, something like that, right? So that's how you would come up with this number here. Just like we did that exercise just recently, but I'm going to keep it singular for a second. So our cost is 150. Our revenue, we know, this is by unit. Our revenue is going to be 150. Everybody follow me so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How much are we spending on marketing? This is a new market. We want to spend money on marketing. How much do we spend? Give me a percentage.
20%.
20.
I like 20, right? So 20% on 150 will be 30 cents, right? Because we're in 20% here. So 20% there are marketing. SG&A is our selling and general administrative expenses. That's no more than 10%. Sometimes it's 15. Well, let's keep it around 10%. So in this case, it's 15 cents, right? So that's how we're coming up with that number. So if we add these up, 50, 80, 95 minus 150 would be what? 55 cents?
55.
55, right? So that's our profit, 55 cents. Everybody see the math there? So now if this is only singular, now if I'm going to come in here and do total units, I'm taking this and I'm multiplying it by my estimate of 300,000, and then that's how I'm rolling out the math, okay? So the math will roll out. In year one, you probably are not going to be profitable. Most companies are not profitable in year one. So I would probably spend more money on marketing. Maybe it'll cost more money on SG&A because you got to set up the operation. So this might be a zero profit here or a negative profit. So the first year you're probably going to be at a negative. The second year you're probably going to be equal, and the final year you probably start making a profit. That's a realistic explanation of how you're going to lay this out. Companies that come into the U.S. and expect to be profitable in year one are not going to be successful. You have to anticipate you're losing money year one. Maybe you're breaking even year two, and year three you're possibly starting to make money. So when you set up a budget, when you have finance, you have to really predict that you're going to be building the business for a minimum of 18 to 24 months before you start gaining traction. So when you come into any international market, it takes time. 18 months, 24 months, it doesn't happen quickly overnight. So you have to keep that in mind. That's one of the big mistakes companies make when entering into an international market. They think they're going to get into the marketplace and they're going to start selling right away and be successful quickly. Now, occasionally that happens, but very rarely does that happen. They don't plan for a long enough period of time. So that's how you would roll that out, okay? There are some some inner pieces that that are part of this that we're not discussing now, but this is sort of the layout of a good plan. Make sense? Okay, any questions for me on any of this stuff here?
When you talk about internet, can you give an example or in what way are we
So,
to?
all right, so let's go back to the bottled water example. I sell bottled water. The way I'm going to sell the bottled water is to find a distributor in the US and have them sell it for me to Publix or Walmart, right? That's normally how you would do that. Can you buy bottled water online?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I have to think, how does that affect my business too? Does that affect my business, or can I use the internet in my favor? Maybe I can use internet as my promotional tool, do great videos of, okay, watch this. I don't know what the 4 Ps are. Now I know what it is because I just drank Professor Ken's marketing water. The product, price, place, and promotion. This is great. It's the best water I ever had. So that's how you can use the internet. You build those little videos like that. So how does that play a role in changing the opportunities? There are some businesses now that internet really is taking over. Look at what Amazon is doing today. Does Amazon affect every business?
Yep.
It does. Now, some businesses have gotten smart and planned with Amazon, and some businesses haven't. And where are they now?
It's up here.
Right, they're not around anymore. Exactly right. So that's why I think you have to really include the internet now, because 10 years from now, internet might be the only way we do business. Might be the only way. Probably not, but probably, right? All those big stores that are out there might be smaller stores, and you might be able to buy product and just go walk in and get it, or a drone will come, deliver it to you, right? Something like that. So that's what that would be for that question, okay? Any other questions on this? No? Okay, now, this is a minimum 4 weeks project, right? That's why I encourage everybody to really dig in and get this done. It's really important that you dig in and get this done. If you spend 4 to 5 hours over the next 3 to 4 weeks to do this, I think you're going to be in a very comfortable spot. But if you wait until next week to start, or the week after to start, I think you're going to be in an uncomfortable spot. Because I'm not counting pages, but let's just think about this as a page count. Executive summary is 1 page. Sometimes it's 2. Generally speaking, it's between 1 and 2. So let's call that 2 pages. The product or service is about 1 page. So keep track of how many pages we have so far. Target market, that's probably 2 pages, because that's a big part of the plan. Macro environment, that's probably 1 to 2 pages max. Micro environment, that's probably 2 pages. Price is probably 1 page. Promotion is probably 1 page. And budget is probably 1 page. So how many pages is that?
13, 12.
13, 12, right. Okay? If you hand it to me and it's 11 pages, it has all the information, it looks good, it makes sense, you'll get a grade based upon that work. I'm not counting pages. You might need 20 pages to say this. That's okay. That's all right too. If you can do it in less, then I think that's wonderful. But I can tell you this, if you end up doing all this in 5 pages, a half page for each, it's not going to have enough information in there. You're not going to get an A grade, because there's no way you can cover some of this information in just 50 sentences or 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs. Some of it's going to require a little more. The other thing too is, remember when you do this, the research is important. So when I say your target market, and you say, okay, everybody who drinks bottled water is my target market, I want to know where you got that information from. You looked up what statistic? Where did you find that information? I found that in the U.S. Census, or online at this website, and this is what it tells me. Okay, so you need to be very specific. Where you say the laws of the land are changing, where did you read that? Did you read it in an article online? Did you read it in actually the U.S. government website? Tell me where you got that information from. Okay. When we talk about price of competition, how are you getting that information on price and competition? And then, of course, promotions are more what you do. So all that adds up to a wonderful plan. Now, anybody here of FedEx? You guys know that? I think I told you guys the story, right? The FedEx company.